Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Hunt the Wild podcast. I'm your host, Adam Bowlds, and today I'm joined with Brad Luttrell of the GoWild app. How you doing, Brad?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to have you introduce yourself a little bit, tell everybody kind of who you are, and then we'll kind of dive into your app because I'm digging it.
Yes, I've seen you in there, so I know
Yeah.
you're actually using it, which is always nice before you do a podcast with somebody. My name's Brad Luttrell. I'm the co-founder and CEO of GoWild. So, born and raised in southeastern Kentucky, currently live in Louisville. Lived in Kentucky most of my life. Spent like 9 months in Tennessee after college, but been here for most of it. I grew up hunting and fishing, and I grew up doing mostly, you know, bank lake fishing, and I did some like small game hunting with my dad. I was super into off roading, but in college I started getting into hunting more, and then after college I really got into whitetail hunting and really learned how hard it is, especially on public land back in eastern Kentucky where there's not as much of a deer population. It's known for big bucks. People think of Kentucky as one of those states, but it's definitely tough in certain parts of it. You know, where I'm at now, it's like if I walk out of my office tonight, I'll probably see deer. But the eastern part of the state's very tough, and I was going through that and trying to figure it out, and had this, part of what led me to go out was just struggling to everybody kind of thinks like, oh, you founded a hunting app, you must be really good at hunting. It was actually the opposite. Like I really sucked and was trying to get better. And I'm like, this is insane that I can't find help on the internet because, 2014, 2015, 2016 of each season, I'm finding like outdated forums, and YouTube was around. It was not the player it is now for hunting content. I think now you've got like people see the hunting public and they see Seek One, and it's like, oh, I want to do that, and it's created this abundance of content. But I mean, we
Mhm.
used to watch hunting videos on YouTube, and they kind of sucked. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like it wasn't what it is today, and so that kind of started this whole thing. So I'm that guy. I'm the guy that really sucked at hunting and went out and built an app selfishly to fix my problem, assuming
So,
somebody else had that problem too.
what kind of forums were you using? Do you remember back then?
I won't name names. Some of them are still around. They look awful. It looks like they were made in like 2001. It's like
Yeah.
that old style forum. It felt like something. I'm old enough to remember the Angel Fire websites, and it was not much better than that. Like it was really outdated. And the biggest problem was I would end up in a forum about like just deer hunting, and you'd be reading about something and you get like 10 or 12 or 20 messages in, and you're like, dude, they're talking about Texas. It's like, I don't
Yeah.
have cacti here. We don't hunt that same way. Totally different. That's irrelevant to me. And so that was the biggest challenge with the forums. The other thing, um, those forums, Reddit, and Facebook groups can be a really intimidating place to post, because as soon as you come in and you're like, what kind of boots is everybody wearing? And they're like, read the threads. Everybody gets super mean. And I always thought that was crazy too. It's like being new to a group, you're never really welcomed to the family. It's like you're told to shut up and get in line and read what everybody else has talked about for the last 3 years. So part of that was, kind of what we set out to try to redesign too with GoWild. And I think too, if you've joined our platform, or if you do after hearing this, you'll find that like nobody tells you to sit down and shut up. It's a very welcoming experience, partially because we've taken away some of that expectation of like this forum that people treat like it's the 10 commandments. This forum thread was written from God, and you're not allowed to touch it. And it's not like this holy place. Like, this is just fun. It's like deer camp. You can say whatever you want. You can come in and ask whatever you want. Nobody's going to shame you for it.
I will ask you this, and you may or may not know the answer. Why do you think those forums, they seem to have lasted this whole time? There still seems to be people posting on them and stuff. Why do you think they've lasted as long as they have?
I think because you can get good information there if you're willing to put up with some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I do think a lot of it too is, a lot of the people that are still there are OGs. They've been there.
Yeah.
And, I've heard people like, I know we'll have these big Facebook groups, and people are like, oh, I wish we had our own trail on Go Wild, and I wish we could come over and we'll make one. And people really like the idea of it. But if you're in this Facebook group that you grew and it's your baby, you've got your own little thing. And so
Yeah.
we've tested that a couple times, and those big groups just don't convert into GoWild members very well. I think people get complacent. That's part of it. So I don't know. I don't have like a really good. I think it's a lot of little things. I think you get complacent. I think you get comfortable with something. I think there are good answers in those. I think there's a lot of really good information in them if you can get in there and put up with it. But I don't know, man. I just like on GoWild, I don't have to do all the work. I can just post the question and I can flag it as a question. And now the app goes out and finds people that it thinks can answer it. And usually I'll get like 10 answers in 24 hours or more, and that's not just Brad, the CEO. Like you can do that. Anybody can tap into that. And I don't know, it's a lot easier. It's a lot
Yeah.
easier to have people come to me than me to go out and try to read through all your old forum history.
I was really intrigued when I started posting on there because I wasn't really sure how like active it was going to be because I knew it's not super new, but it's not been around like nearly like as long as Facebook or anything.
Right.
So I was posting on there thinking, oh, I might get one reply, like, but I was like shocked at the notifications, like on replies and stuff.
Yeah.
People are very, very active on there and they're very helpful, and it's kind of nice not
Yeah.
to be shamed.
Yeah. And part of it's funny because we're not Facebook with millions of people. And sometimes people think like, oh, I need that. I need that kind of volume to be able to get interaction and good engagement. But there are accounts in our platform that get more comments than some of these nonprofits that have 250,000 followers on Instagram. I mean, it's just a fact. Like if you look at some of those accounts, yeah, every now and then they'll have something go viral, but like when you start looking at what it is, it's not like it's really good of content usually. Most posts from a big account will get like 6 to 20 comments. And you've
Yeah.
been on GoWild long enough to know it's like you can have 3 followers and get that kind of engagement. It's not about the followers on our platform. It is a forum, at the end of the day. You're still posting into forums. We've just visualized them, and it's not so labor intensive to sort through them. So just to quickly explain what we're talking about, the app is more similar to Reddit than Facebook. Facebook, you got to have a network, you got to build up your friends. Instagram, you got to have followers to get engagement, right? For the most part. GoWild, you're posting into a forum. It's very similar to a Reddit. If you post into you're really into arrowheads and you post into an arrowhead thread on Reddit, everybody that follows that thread or that subreddit can see it. On GoWild, if you post into deer hunting, everybody that's posting into deer hunting that week or that day can see your post. So we are immediately putting you in front of thousands upon thousands of people that are also interacting around that topic. So like trapping, for example, I've yet to be proven wrong on this. I'm pretty sure this is accurate. I think we have the most active forum on trapping in the world.
Hmm.
Like you can post into trapping. I mean, how often do you see people really talking about that? I mean, trapping gets so much flack on
Oh,
Instagram. It's
uh-huh.
crazy, right? But on our platform, people are like, "Oh, what size, whatever foothold?" I don't know anything about trapping. I should probably stop here before I get myself like sounding like an idiot. I've learned about it has been through GoWild though. I've learned there's an awesome thread the other day about trapping beavers and tanning the hides, and I've gotten to watch a lot of that and unfold. But like, where can you do that? Where else can you tap in? And on top of that, you can even go another layer deeper and hit the near me button. And now I can look at trapping with all these people in Kentucky or within a 120-mile radius, I think it is, around me. So you're getting super relevant information, which goes back to my very first problem of not being able to get relevant information. So, yeah, the product itself just does a much better job than those forums of getting you accurate information.
So I want to bounce around here a little bit before we jump like deeper into the app, but I definitely
Sure.
want to cover more about the app. I wanted to ask you what your favorite thing was to hunt because I know you said you grew up doing some small game, some deer and stuff, but have you ever traveled and done like elk or anything like that? I know
I
there's some
haven't
elk in Kentucky.
done elk, and you'll pretty much never get an elk tag in Kentucky.
Yeah.
They're very tough. Now, if you have land, you can get them, or if you know someone that has a landowner tag. But we don't even have a lottery, or it's a lottery. We don't have a point system. I have not traveled out west to do elk. I've traveled with GoWild. I've gotten to go up to Alaska. I did king salmon and halibut fishing, which was awesome. Got to go up and do that about an hour north of Ketchikan. Awesome trip. I got to hunt whitetail in Texas. Got the Texas experience. It was like 15 miles from the Mexican border.
Hmm.
That was pretty cool. For the most part, though, I hunt in Kentucky. I'm hunting whitetail, turkey, a little bit of dove. I used to do a lot more dove. I don't get to squirrel hunt as much as I used to, mostly because I don't like to go into my deer hunting property shooting squirrels and just doing that right in the same season. But I do love squirrel hunting. It's really fun. But if it's deer season, that's my favorite. Here in about 3 months, it'll be turkey, and I just kind of go back and forth.
Are you just an early bow guy, or you run it all the way through till
I don't.
late season?
Kentucky opens up so early. Like we open up just after Labor Day on bow.
Hmm.
Um, I don't usually get it's just too freaking hot, man. To get out there and sit in a tree. I do have a property that that I started hanging cameras on this year that I think I'm going to get out. I've got a really really nice buck on camera right now, and I imagine he's gonna make it because it's a pretty urban property. So I think I'm gonna get out in September next year and maybe try to get a velvet. That'd be really cool to get this big guy on in velvet. But no, man, I don't usually like to get out until like October, and then I
Yeah.
usually try to get a dozen sits before Modern Gun opens up, like at least that because around where I hunt, last year I heard 200 shots on opening day. I'm not exaggerating. I heard 100 before 8 a.m. and then another 100 throughout the day. This year,
Wow.
I think I heard 100 this year, which was a lot. The previous record before was 43, I think, by 8 a.m., which is a lot for most people. But
Yeah.
this is one of those counties like I'm pretty sure it's like everybody's kid and like everybody's coming out and just shooting anything that moves.
Yeah.
It's zone 1 in Kentucky, which is the zone where literally you can shoot does until the end of season unlimited. Like it's just there's so many does or so many deer that they have like they're really trying to thin them out because it's a problem at that point in the state. Um, but yeah, I think I'm going to try to get out a little earlier than normal next season. This season I had a really funny experience where it's a long story of where I put in like I don't know 7 hunts. Uh, I got 5 sits before Modern Gun, and I had like multiple times seen this big 10 point that I was kind of chasing, and I had been passing on like this 8 point. I'd seen him a bunch. I'd passed on these little forkies, and this one like really tiny deer, like his it was so small. I thought he was a doe multiple times, but he had these little bitty toothpick antlers. And then like opening day of gun, I passed on the 8 point again, and blah blah blah. Second day of gun, I passed on the 8 point, and then he like raises up, and I realized it's the big 10 point, but he had walked too far over, and
Mm.
now if I had a pass through or if I missed it, the bullet would have gone into the neighbor's property. So I'm like looking at my target deer, and I'm like, oh my god, I had 15 seconds. I could have shot that deer, and now I'm watching him walk away. And I thought he got killed that day, but he didn't. He ended up getting killed about a week later.
Mm.
But I'm sitting there thinking he got shot because I heard a gunshot a few minutes later, and I'm like grieving. And for 4 hours, I sit in like it's like the worst temperature because it's not cold enough to snow. It's just raining and windy. I sit there for 4 hours, beating myself up for letting this 10 point walk, and on accident, like I thought it was a different deer. And then I'm like, I got to get meat in the freezer. I'm shooting the first doe that pops out. So this doe pops up, 110 yards. I'm checking. I'm looking through. I verified 3 times that there were no antlers. She was moving pretty fast, like coming out. Not a trot, but like I kept bleeding. It was so windy she couldn't hear me. And finally, I did like this loud man bleat, which was basically just shouting at her. And she
Hmm.
stopped. I shoot her. Long story short is it was the little bitty toothpick deer.
Oh
So
gosh.
so I accidentally tagged out in Kentucky. Um, I was so mad by the time I found this deer. It ran pretty good ways. It was like 200 yards. Because it was so small and I thought it was a doe, I tried to shoot a little further back to save my
Mm.
meat. So it ended up being a liver shot. This is like all-time worst 48 hours of my hunting career. So it's like I tracked it further. I finally get up there and I'm like, okay, I found my doe. And I get up there and roll the head up, and it's these. I mean, they're so small, dude. But in
Is it?
Kentucky,
Is
if
it? It's
it,
three
it
inches or
count,
less, unless there's two, though,
no,
right?
not in
It's
Kentucky,
not.
man. It's 1 inch or more.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. So I tagged out because I went back and read through it. I was like, no way. Like multiple people were said what you said. They're like, no, dude, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm reading the book. I mean, it looks like it counts as my buck tag. So I was bummed. But yeah, so I'm like currently tagged out right now, but I've got all these big bucks coming in on this new property. I've been hanging cameras. So hopefully they make it.
I'm just right across the river in Indiana. I'm in Evansville, but I hunt a little bit of Kentucky, and I have been for about 3 years now. But I get out on opener, and man, I have to say it's scorching. I think it's like 90 degrees last year, and the
Yeah.
humidity is just ridiculous.
Yeah. And two, if you get one, like you got to move
Yeah,
fast. I mean, a lot of the places I hunt, I'm like, I'm trying to do the math of like the timing, and I'm like, I don't even know. You'd have to ice it before you'd have to cool it down before you hung it because I got to drive. I mean, it'd be an hour after I found it before I could even get it to my house.
yeah.
It's just a lot. I mean, it's a lot of the timing would be important.
I've never shot one that early, but I've hunted it plenty of times, and I've always wondered because sometimes I'm a mile and a half back, so I'm
Yeah.
thinking I got to drag this deer a mile and a half, and then I'm 45 minutes from the house. It's like
I,
I don't know how guys do that.
I walk a mile in, but I'm fortunate enough now. I hunt a farm and it's 60 acres, so I can actually drive back to the spot. Like
Mm,
this year, I walked out and got the car, even though this thing was like less than 100 pounds. I could have dragged it, but I mean, I was like, I'm not dragging this thing a mile if I don't have to.
yeah,
So walked
definitely.
15, 20 minutes to get the car and drove the SUV back and threw it in.
So as far as like for the rest of the season, you're kind of tagged out, so you're just waiting on turkey season then.
Yeah, well, I'm actually gonna I accidentally tagged out on this buck that was, I don't know, sub 100 pounds for sure. I thought it was a doe. So I am actually, I'm going to try to get out and get one more doe because I mean,
Hmm.
I hunt bow. That was a gun. That was gun. Obviously 110 yards. It was gun. Um, so I'm going to try to get out and get another deer. And I don't think I have room for a whole one in my freezer. But I could give away some to the team. So I'm still hoping to get out in January. It'd be cool to get some snowy hunts. We don't get a lot of those around here. So I'm kind of like fingers crossed I'll get a fun day to go out and do that. The new property I'm hunting is 15 minutes from my house, and
Oh,
it's like a 2/10 of a mile walk from the car, so it's super accessible. Um, so I might get out and do that, but then it's going to be turkey because trade show season hits soon, and
yeah.
we got ATA, there's SHOT Show, we're going up to the Great American Outdoor Show, so that's like 2 weeks of February that I'll be gone. So there's a lot coming up. I mean, I won't, even if I could do like some of the winter. I think squirrel's the only thing that's really open besides trapping.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do any of that anyways.
So you mentioned your team real quick. So I'm going to ask you this: do you guys eat a lot of wild game
Yeah, man.
at the office?
Yeah. It was funny because I smoked some backstrap, and one of our new employees was like, "Oh, why don't you bring it into the office?" And I don't think Dan thought I would. And I'm like, "Cool, bringing it in." And I made like this giant charcuterie or whatever board. Had all of it diced up with cheeses, the whole deal, with spicy honey and crackers. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't think you'd really do this." We've had beaver, mountain goat, moose, elk. God, dude, literally a javelina. I mean, we cook all kinds of weird stuff. Stuff that other people would think is weird.
Yeah.
A lot of that's not even mine. It just kind of like Go Wild members bring stuff.
Yeah.
Mike Larson from Michigan has given me a ton of stuff. My friends Lynn and Lacey from Alaska will sometimes, usually this time of year, they travel down and they'll end up dropping off like 30 pounds of meat. But yeah, we cook a lot of wild game. There's like probably something in here, a couple times a month.
Yeah. That's really cool. Um, can you talk a little bit about how Go Wild started? Like actually, like the day that it popped in your head. Do you remember like that
I
day? And you're
do.
like, I'm doing this.
Yeah, man, I remember exactly where I was in the field. Like, well, I remember the concept because I had 2016. I had been working really hard on this 30-acre property down in southeastern Kentucky, so it's Appalachian Mountains. That's where I'm from, and I had gotten access to my first private lot to hunt. So since I used to hunt, I had hunted with a guy before, and I wasn't able to hunt with him anymore. So this was like my first time scouting, hanging cameras, doing the whole thing on this property by myself.
Okay.
And I remember walking through this field. It's August. It's super hot. I've been checking trail cameras because this was before cell cams, and it was before like I wouldn't have been able to run a cell camera here anyways because there's no cell phone coverage. So I'm walking through, and I had this thought of I had a boss of a company give me grief for posting a deer on Facebook. He's like, "Oh, do you feel like a man now?" And I remember
Mm,
thinking about that while I was walking through, and I was like, "What a shame that like." Well, I remember thinking like, "Will I post if I get a deer? Will I post it on Facebook?" And I remember thinking like, "What a shame that you can't share something that you work so hard for and have people celebrate it with you." And that combined with everything I told you earlier that I had been struggling to learn, like the combination of that was like, oh my God, there should be a place where you can go and do all this stuff. And so I was 3 hours from my house. I think my wife works night shift. And I think me and my son had gone down to see my parents and like spend a few days down there without her or something. I don't really remember, but like the whole time on the way back, I'm kind of like brains cranking. And I remember those first few nights back of sitting down and doing research because I came from advertising, man. I've touched almost every industry you can think of in some type of advertising campaign or a website build or something. But I had never thought of the hunting industry. Like the hunt to me, now I think people do again because they see all these people on YouTube and they're all sponsored and it's like
yeah.
it's this thing. And before though, I'd never thought about being sponsored. I never thought about who the brands and how much money there probably was in this industry. And that may sound like really gross to somebody, but the reason I'm thinking that is like I'm thinking about building a business. And if you're going to build a business, you got to make money. If you're going to make money, you got to have demand. And so I started doing research on it from that angle. And I just remember being floored of the economic output of hunt fish. Hunting fish in 2016, when I found the stat, was cranking out $156 billion of economic output every year. Hunting alone employs more people than Walmart. I mean, it's just like you start to find this stuff and you're like, oh my God, like it's there, and then you start thinking like, why has nobody else really done this? And they have. It's not like there's not been competitors along the way. Even when I started this, I wasn't the first to think of it. I found 2 or 3 companies that were doing it, or really it was like a guy. But I just at the time I didn't think that the web design was good enough or the app design or whatever, and I'm like, nobody's doing this at the level I think I can do it. I think I can build a team who could build a quality enough app. Like it's going to be quality at the level you expect an app to be. I know you use LinkedIn. I think that's how we met.
Hmm.
The app's really good, right? If you have a LinkedIn app that's really good, you have your Chase Bank app, you have your Gmail app, these are world-class products. Nobody is going to suffer through your turd hunting app just because they really love hunting, right? Like, I don't care how much you love hunting. If the user experience sucks, people are going to bounce. So
Hmm.
it was really important to me to find like a really good team on the tech side to help build this. And I did. We started this with 4 different guys, me and 3 other guys in my basement with like pizza and beer and my dog and $500. So, but from there, we took the time to, after the research from August, I had my co-founders locked in by December. So it took me, what is that, 4 months to kind of pull it together and get a team rolling. And then we launched it the next September.
It's pretty fast.
It was fast. That's 9 months. It's like
That's
9 months on a side hustle with no money.
let me ask you this: that old boss, you feel like you give him the credit for kind of lighting that fire underneath you,
Yeah, I
or
mean, I've mentioned him several times, of just like, I mean, he and I don't speak, but it's I wouldn't like thank him or anything for it.
yeah, right.
Like that initiated. I mean, there was definitely a thought process of, it shouldn't be this way. And I mean, I've had plenty of other instances. I mean, it's kind of funny because we started the GoWild Instagram. I'm like, how are we going to promote this? Obviously, social media, and that's what I was good at too, was creating content. I'm a copywriter. I'm a photographer by background, and so that part came naturally to me. And I started putting stuff out there. And I like that little measly comment from my old boss was nothing compared to what came when we started growing it. We added like 10,000 followers in the first 3 months of being on Instagram. People were really excited about what we were trying to build. And then all of a sudden I started getting death threats And I'm like, whoa, this is next level. And then they started getting like super personal of people like threatening to shoot my child with a crossbow. And I'm like, okay, a lot of times they're anonymous Looney Tunes, right? Like you're like, this is
Yeah.
crazy. But some of them came in. I've turned over 2 people to the FBI because it was
Oh
like,
shit.
yeah, like it was that level of serious. So like it kind of got real fast, even though like, we're just an Instagram page. We weren't even really a
Yeah.
business at that point. But I watched how much stronger it can be. And at that time, I had never really seen anything at that level. Today, I'm like, I don't know. I get that crap all the time. Even on my LinkedIn page, I had some lady trolling me yesterday. It's like that happens all the time now. But 2016, you know, it's like we thought we were on the forefront of people being nasty to each other. You know, if you can put your mindset back 4 years there, 5 years, it's Trump and Hillary election, which I'm like, oh my God, people have never treated each other worse. Little did we know what 2020 would do to us. But like it just seemed so crazy to me that people would go that far to an extreme. I mean, even I had spent like much of my career had been made on social media and creating content for it, and I'd never seen such hate and vitriol towards someone that you don't know as when I started posting about hunting content. Like it was crazy. When you start posting 3 times a day on Instagram about hunting content, you get some absolute nut jobs after you.
Why do you think censorship is like for hunting is such a big thing, like on all these other platforms? I mean, without being like real specific, there's probably a lot more ornery content posted on Instagram and everything than a dead deer. So, I mean, where do you think that kind of
The man,
spews from?
honestly, like the biggest bulk answer here is not necessarily one that the people who fight this stuff, like you can even lump me in them with this. Like the non-sexy answer and the one that people doesn't really get people fired up is just the fact that look at everything else that Facebook has to deal with. We'll just stick to Facebook for a second. Look at
Okay.
everything else they have to deal with. They have beheadings. They have terrorists. They have drug cartels recruiting actively on their platform. And it was so bad that it got Wall Street Journal coverage, but they actually found out through the Wall Street Journal that like among all the other shit that they deal with, they were like, yeah, but we got all this other stuff going on. They have public suicides. They have public murders happening on Facebook Live. They don't give a rip about hunting. It's just like it's a nuisance. And so they bucket it over here with all this other stuff that's in a minority, and hunting is in a very small minority. And they're like, yeah, this is legal. Some of this stuff's okay, but sorting through and pulling out everything that's okay away from the ones that are really gory or have a lot of whatever, we don't want to deal with that. We're not going to deal with that. That's the truth. Like I've talked to people that worked at Facebook. I've talked to people who wrote the policies, literally some of the first 20 employees at Facebook. And this is what it is. It is literally like the volume. Facebook gets 200,000 things wrong a day on their platform by their own data in their own censorship.
Jeez.
So at the end of the day, like that's the bulk of it. Now there are instances where, so like I'll say like that's not necessarily what I'm fighting against. Here's the kind of stuff that like really grinds my gears over this. There are instances where it's like, okay, yeah, every now and then you're going to get censored because 25 vegans flagged your account and they have an automation set up to where that's why that little like this is censored or sensitive content. That just means your account was reported X number of times and it was an automatic trigger, right? That kind of stuff, like I can look past. Things like when I'm advertising, which we don't do anymore on the platform because it's disgusting, but like when we were advertising on Facebook, I had multiple times where we were advertising a picture of someone holding binoculars, wearing camo, linking to a page just to buy binoculars, and it kept saying that we were selling weapons. And we would appeal it. An employee at Facebook would say, I can see that you're not violating this, but it's not really my problem. And, you know, yeah, you're playing by the rules, but I'm not going to worry about you. And they have all these, you know, we went back and forth for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it was constantly just like, yeah, but you guys, like, you aren't really worth it because, like, I don't really care about your kind of business was the answer. And we live in a world, man, where Up until, and I don't know how much we want to nerd out on this stuff, but like from a marketing perspective, up until iOS 14, when Apple
Mhm.
made that big privacy shift, up until then, it was Facebook had a pretty good thing going on how easy it was to convert because they're so good at getting data that they probably shouldn't have, right? Like at the end of the day, they knew so much about you. It was really cheap to get people to do whatever you wanted to. You could go in, you spend $1, you get 4 back. I don't know about you. I'm very bad at math, but like I like that, right?
Yeah.
Um, but what happens is and again, this is where I really have a problem with it. They have this system that has basically become synonymous with communication. It's become synonymous with social, and it's become synonymous with advertising. It's almost to the point to where it's a government utility, but you have this private business that says, "Well, but we don't really want to deal with you, or we don't like what you're doing, so we're not going to help you out." Or the other thing that happens, and I don't have, there's no like Wall Street Journal article on this, but I've figured this out through playing the game. The other thing that happens is if you come in with a big enough check, you can stroke your way out of that problem. So while
Mm.
Facebook's over here saying like last year in the pandemic, well, we're for small businesses, we help small businesses, it's not necessarily true because if you want to write a $300,000 check a month, which a lot of it probably blows people's minds to think about spending that much. There's companies that do that all day long and much more. And what's interesting is they'll let them break the rules. We've talked to Facebook reps and said, hey, that is definitely against your rules, and they get to do that. I'm over here with just a dude holding binoculars trying to sell some Vortex. And they're like, yeah, but you guys only give us X amount this month. Like, well,
Yeah.
that's just kind of what it is. They'll tell you that. They'll tell you that. Their own people will acknowledge that. And so
That's not discrimination. I guess they're allowed to say who they want to do
I
business
mean,
with.
yeah, well, this is where everybody's like, well, and people will make that justification and say, well, they're private business, they can do what they want. And they'll say that about the content side too. And hunters have said this until we're blue in the face, and we make excuses for Facebook. But again, coming back to the fact that, and again, I'm going to sound like socialist, and I'm not. But the coming back to like, at what point, how many billions of people have to be on a platform before it's a public utility? It's
Yeah.
almost synonymous with the internet at this point. So, like the fact that you have something that's so wide, such a wide swath of how we communicate, and you have this whole audience that you're blocking just because you don't like what they do, and you don't want their business. I mean, it's messed up, man.
It all comes down to the dollar, doesn't it?
The almighty dollar does a lot with Facebook because their reps can choose who they want to work with. They don't have to help you per
It's
Facebook's
wrong.
rules.
It's wrong.
That's
What do
where
you,
like I said, that's what I sound like an old man, but like that's what grinds my gears.
what do you what do you feel about like when they ban you like permanently for content like that? Like just an average guy like me, like I'm not doing a business or anything. I'm just doing like a small podcast. Like what's a guy like me do? Just like fight it and get on another platform or what?
Yeah, man. So there's a couple things that happen. Like let's walk through the levels of that because that's really a wider question than just Facebook. So Facebook, typically what's going to happen, you might get like with Instagram, you get the censor flag. I've been off Facebook so long that they didn't have Facebook jail when I was on there. But my
Mhm.
understanding now is like Facebook jail kind of incrementally goes up for repeat offenders. Like my buddy Blake, it's just like if he tells someone something now, he just automatically goes in for 30 days, which I think is as long as you can go, right?
My
Like I
gosh.
think, yeah, he's like constantly at a 30-day Facebook ban. Um, but so there's that. Twitter will give you, they have a strike policy and you can kind of work your way up to being banned outright, like an Alex Jones situation, right? YouTube, the big trigger they'll pull against you is to demonetize you,
Mhm.
and which happened to Seek One recently. Seek One, I believe, got it overturned. But for them, the rule that they broke was showing how to process wild game. You can post those videos now, but you can't monetize them. YouTube can make money off them, but you can't. Stupid. So there's levels to this, right? So the question of like what should you do, and I tell this to businesses too. My advice is not to get too many eggs into one basket. And as a marketer, you always want to own as much as you can your own audience. And so the best thing you can do in anything as a podcaster or as a $5 million a month business is to own your own audience. You want to have an email list that's awesome. You want people checking your email content because that's the one thing that's kind of hard to take away. Now Google could probably do it because they own such a huge market share, right? They could
Yeah.
eventually start filtering stuff, and I don't know, but it's possible, right? There's so much power there. But like for the most part, email is kind of still the sacred cow if you have a really good list. This is kind of beyond a podcast, but like text messaging, that is going to be the next big thing. It's already taking off on ecom. I imagine that's going to get eventually more friendly to like podcasters like you. If you have a good text list, super powerful, because I don't know about you, but like I open 100% of my text messages.
Yep.
You just don't not open a text, right? So I think like trying to build up these alternative platforms, these places where you can own it better, is good. I say this, you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket, but you also, like, if you're trying to promote your podcast, it doesn't make sense to be on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Rumble, YouTube. Like how far are you going to go, right? Like you kind
Yeah.
of got to pick your battles. I know you're on LinkedIn. Like at what point does it not make sense anymore? Um, I think you have to pick like as much as you have capacity for to do well. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's as much of like how to get out of being banned. It's more you have to approach these platforms by the rules of which they've set in place. We are experimenting with a TikTok account right now. There is a GoWild account, but there's another account out there that I won't say is ours yet. But we have a way that we've approached TikTok. We can't show guns. We can't talk about guns. You can't. I mean, it's just crazy. But like literally, their artificial intelligence scans the photos or the videos, and I posted a picture of me from a bachelor party holding a shotgun, and I got the photo was taken down within 2 minutes. I don't even have followers. Like nobody would
Yeah.
have even reported this, and it was gone in 2 minutes because they scan it. And when you think about like the power that a company has to have scan that much content, and like you're talking about really controlling a narrative, you really can. You think about how scary it is that Google's the largest search engine in the world. YouTube's the second. YouTube is actually bigger than all the other search engines combined, and it's owned by the biggest search engine. And
Huh.
so think about the fact that YouTube transcribes all of everything. If you put this on YouTube right now, they know everything we're talking about. They know I'm smack talking YouTube, so you're not going to get any reach. Sorry. But if I said like coronavirus or COVID, they scan that and now it gets throttled. And because they have the transcription, they can run artificial intelligence through it to scan it and see what you're talking about. And I mean, we've seen this with that. We had to stop running my old show, Restless Native, on YouTube because it would get like 15 views versus our other videos that are getting thousands. And so like think about the power of what can be controlled in a message. Like, a few stroke of the keys. I'm not really exaggerating that much, but a few stroke of the keys, it's like, nah, hunting content not going to get any reach anymore. It's like you can do this on either. You could do it Republican content or Democrat content. It's kind of scary. Again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Is like public. It is a public utility at a certain point, and how much do we want to just say like, well, it's a private business. YouTube is
Yeah.
literally owning 93% of search, or Google. They own 93% of search. It's one company controlling the answers to 93% of what we want to know.
Is it possible for like I don't really know like the I don't really know how it all works, but is it possible for the government to control your app ever at all? Is it ever like possible for them to tell you what you can and can't have on Go Wild?
So, not. It's a really good question. I would say anything's possible, and part
Yeah.
of this is what Mark Zuckerberg has been advocating for, because I think in his mind, I shouldn't speak for him. I say a lot about him, making fun of him. I won't speak for him, but I think the reason he wants the government to come up with policies to regulate, he was on, through all of the videos of him drinking water in his testimonies. A lot of what he was saying is like, you know, it's hard for us to control the content. You guys should really figure out a way to moderate this. Um, I think in his mind, the government's not going to do very good. It's like you're shifting, you're kind of passing the buck.
Yeah.
And but I don't worry as much about the government. With Parler, and I think our app is way more tasteful than Parler's content was. Parler was just completely unregulated, and they got booted off Amazon. That's really the biggest risk you have. With that said, like Amazon is not really in the content regulation game. You have to be pretty extreme before Amazon's going to boot you. We're not really worried about it. The one thing that could happen, more at risk than the government getting involved, would be us getting kicked off of the App Store.
Mm,
That's probably the biggest risk for us, is that
yeah.
Apple decides anything that has a certain percentage of firearms in its content, we're going to kick you off. With that said, I don't worry about that. I don't lose sleep over that. It's just kind of one of those things. If it happens, it happens. And it could be one of those things where if it happened, it'd be like the best thing in the world for us, because now everybody's talking about like, oh, GoWild got kicked off the App Store. Let's all circle around GoWild. I don't know. I don't really
Yeah.
care. I don't stay up at night thinking about that stuff. I will say, like, I was kind of surprised at how fast Trump got, like, even platforms where he didn't break the rules, people like kind of bandwagoned onto saying he did and dumping him. I think that shows, like, yeah, anything's possible. Pinterest. I
Yeah.
think Pinterest came out and like, yeah, we're dumping Trump, and it's like people are like, wait, Trump was on Pinterest. It's like it starts to get really, like, it became really obvious that people were just jumping on board because they didn't like Trump personally.
Yeah.
I think some of that stuff can happen, man. I mean, it's like, again, going back to private businesses, that's the biggest risk, is that people just, like, morally, we don't align with your content. You're out of here.
So I'm gonna bounce around here too. I really like the point system about posting and everything on the app. So I know we haven't really talked about that, but I want to touch on that too. If you could explain kind of how that works with posts
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah. So the one fun thing about the platform is you do get points for interactions within the app. We did this from the beginning. It's always been there, because it lets you see people who have more experience on the platform, so you can start to find people you can trust. It's just like a Reddit karma score, or Snapchat has their score. It's like you're finding people who, I mean, the spammers are always the ones that have no points on anything, right? They never have any followers. They never have any points on anything, because they just showed up, and they're just boom, 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 messaging everybody. Likewise, if someone's on GoWild, they've never logged a deer, they've never posted, never done anything, they have 0 points, and you ask, like, hey, what's a good rifle cartridge for whitetail hunting? And they come in and they're like, boom, it's this. And you're like, I don't know this guy from anybody. I can't tell anything about him. He doesn't even have a score. It's kind of like a quick way to write somebody off. Or if Lynn Hoffman comes in and he tells you, like, oh, you definitely want to use a 270 because of blah, 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 which I don't know that that's what Lynn's a real person. He's a friend of mine. He's a guide in Alaska. I think he has the most points in GoWild, period. I can't remember what he has, but
Sounds like a challenge.
yeah, I think he's got like 60 or 70,000 points in GoWild. He guides, and we let guides are allowed to upload other
Oh.
people's trophies. It's the only situation we allow other people's trophies to be uploaded as your own, because you're getting that person, that animal.
Hmm.
So the if Lynn tells you, though, and you look at his profile, you're like, oh yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about, right? So the points were there to help validate. And over time, what we saw was, there were other activities. It's like, man, you should really get some credit for that. Like, if you leave a gear review, you're helping other people by sharing gear that either sucks or was good, right? You're giving your expertise. And so there's all these different ways you can get points within the platform. And the point system was always there. It was great. It was fun. But we, just recently in September, we added in a way that you can now take your points and get rewards for them. So this is not like airline miles. You don't cash them in. You're kind of leveling up. And so you start out with 0 points, and really quickly you can get to 1,000 points or so. And you're going to get like 2 or 3 rewards pretty quickly out of the gate, just to kind of show people how it works. And so, you get like a t-shirt. I mean, dude, right now, I think if you just create your account and put your first and last name in, you unlock $10, like literally $10 to go spend, right? There's $5 gift cards. There's free GoWild t-shirts, free stickers. We have one live right now that's a 25% off Vortex, which, like, depending on what you're buying, that can be hundreds of dollars, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So like the rewards are really freaking sweet. And so the point system, it ties into your trophy. And so if you upload a whitetail, it looks at, like, if I use a rifle and use a compound, it knows the compound's a harder weapon to master. And so you get more points. It would also know that if you did 40 yards with a bow and I did 40 yards with a rifle, yours was a harder shot because 40 yards are not created equally in this scenario. And so it looks at all that data and gives you, like, that's why the points vary on trophies. It's looking at literally everything you enter. And even that varies per species. You know, we have 250 species or something. They've all been individually entered into our system, and they all have unique scoring systems. So all that kind of leads into your rewards too. So, but man, I mean, the rewards are fun. I am actually, unfortunately, one of our best customers, like, because I get them and I'm like, sweet. I just had a $25 gift card that I unlocked. I've got a pretty good amount of points. Obviously, I've got 27,000. And I just recently unlocked a $25 gift card, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go buy this hybrid light that I've been wanting. You know, it's now 50% off basically because I got $25 off of it. So they are super fun. It's just something different, man. It's just something that makes us special. You can't get that anywhere else.
Do the points top out ever?
No, keep
No.
going.
Yeah.
Even the rewards are set in perpetuity. They just keep at the end of, if you get to like the 100,000 points, it's like at least every 5,000, you're going to get either a really good gift card or a really steep discount. But what's interesting is, like, that's at least, we introduce new rewards all the time.
Yeah.
And they vary. So sometimes it might be an introduction, like anybody with 6,000 points or more are going to get this one. Or I think the last one we introduced was like 800 points or more. I think it was a $5 gift card. Anybody, I can't remember what exactly, but so, like, you know, it's an evolving, living thing. It just, when the plan is, as we start getting new products into, is kind of to introduce a product like we just started working with we've been working with this cool sock company, Lasso Socks. They're made to increase circulation. They keep your feet warmer. They're made for athletes. And we found them. We're like, dude, these are awesome for hunting. And they're like, let's do it. So we brought them into the space. And if we wanted to introduce people to that, we might offer like $5 off Lasso or something like that.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Something else I like is I can get a hold of you or any of your team members on the app. Talk a little bit about that and, like, why you guys allow that.
That's an interesting way you worded that, because usually people are like, yeah, it's cool you actually respond. But as you said, like, actually allow it. Like, we actually don't even just allow it, we encourage it, because when you join, you're going to get the message you get's automated. And I don't try to hide this. I mean, but I always tell people, like on a podcast, somebody asked me about it, like, the first one you get from me is automated because I can't sit around all day and send like thousands of people a
Right.
DM. But when you sent me the link tonight, you know what I was doing? I was sitting here looking through my DMs. Right now, I have 58 unread notifications on my GoWild account. I'm going through and I'm answering like all of people's hellos and this is awesomes, or hey, dude, I have a question. That's me interacting with that. We decided to do that because when we founded this in my basement in 2016, felt a big problem with social media that existed was things were very clinical. We've lost the human element of communication with social media as it stands on other platforms. And, I've seen a lot of people say stuff like, well, back in my day, if you wanted to say something, you had to say it to my face and you would get punched. That's actually very true. Like, psychologically, studies have proven that our children are not learning good social cues because they will say things and they don't see the other person's face, that it makes them sad or that it made them laugh. And, we feel like we don't want to be just another social media app that contributes to all these downfalls of humanity. Like, there's so many things that are wrong with Instagram. I mean, I hate that platform because of what it's doing to our girls. And, I mean, 32% of teen girls have body image issues because of Instagram.
Hmm.
6% of suicide teens attribute it to Instagram because of something that happened on Instagram. I want nothing to do with that. And so we have tried to build a platform that is more friendly, it's more personal. And part of building a personal brand is owning the fact that we are a part of the brand. If something is wrong with GoWild, I want people to be able to tell me. And I feel like if I put my heart and soul into making this place better and trying to help, that reciprocates and people pick up on that out of the gate. And if anything that we've done to inspire the community to be nice to each other, it is out of the gate. We are welcoming to you. And so maybe that rolls it forward. People ask me all the time, how did you make such a nice community? And my answer is like, I don't really know. And I really don't. I don't know why it's so nice. I can't tell people not to be dicks. I really
Yeah.
can't. Like, what can I do? Now, we've deleted people for it. Um, it's not often, but I don't have to keep you in GoWild. If you're a turd, I can flush it, right? Like that, we don't have to put up with that. So in some ways, it's kind of funny because people are like, this is a great 2A platform or a First Amendment platform, and it is until you start, harassing somebody for shooting a spike. That's something that's against our policy. You can't do that. If you start talking about poaching, if you're poaching, you're out. There's certain things that you're just not going to bring to our platform. And so we put our face on it because we felt like if we were out there and we're being honest and held accountable, that other people might be the same.
So it kind of brings me to two questions here. One, it's pretty inevitable that you're going to get bigger, right? So do you ever think it's going to get to a capacity that you're not going to be able to like keep up with all those notifications?
100%. I hope it does.
Yeah.
There's times, man, I've sat down many nights and answered 150 DMs in a day, like at night, or more than that in a day. But like, I've sat down at like 10 o'clock and just answered DMs for 2 hours. I'm really dedicated to it. I do anticipate that eventually we won't be able to do it anymore. When I first started GoWild, I bought some stickers. Again, started this with my own money. We've since raised money, which anybody with the Google can figure that out. But first it was like me buying stickers to send to people out of my pocket, and I would write them a full letter. I would write them like, I'm talking like a giant postcard. And I would write them about all the things we wanted to do with the platform. And thank you so much for being involved. And as we got a little bit bigger with an Instagram account still, before we even had an app, we were selling shirts on a Shopify. And I would write like a paragraph still. And today, if you get something bought from our warehouse, it's kind of gotten down to like, sometimes you'll get a full handwritten note on like a post-it size card that says like, thanks for being a part of the community, Dan, or whoever is helping that day. I think there's sometimes now that they send it's like a printed card, but Dan's still writing his name. It's like with the thousands of orders Dan's doing, Dan can't slow down and write everybody. Like, it's
Yeah.
just not possible, right? So like, I'm kind of seeing some of that stuff slip now. But we still like go so above and beyond. I mean, people, it's amazing still. And you've seen this if you've been on the app. I think you've been on the app long enough, probably see some of these posts. People still take pictures of the little cards, even though they're printed
Yeah.
out. It's obvious Dan didn't write that. It was printed on a little piece of craft paper, but he signed his name. And people find that to be really cool. So as long as we can keep finding ways to delight people, I think the delights will scale, because we'll find some. And we still throw free stickers in with almost every order that comes out of our warehouse. Now, I'll explain that we work with like 35 different brands at this point. Stuff ships from all over the country, because some of that stuff, like if you buy from Vortex from us, it ships from Wisconsin. Or, well, I think they're out of Wisconsin. I think their warehouse is in Wisconsin where they are. It ships from wherever they are. But like our shirts, if you buy our Ditch Pickle Bass bundles, there's some Badlands bags. Like, it kind of just depends. But if we ship it here, it comes with a free sticker. Like we like, those are ways we can surprise people. And so I may not be able to do the DMs for forever. I hope to be able to do them for like at least another year. But yeah, everything, you know, one of my favorite sayings about or like favorite rules about entrepreneurship rather, or guidances, is just to do things that don't scale, like surprise people in ways they're not used to. So we're still living by that and still trying to do that.
People love free stickers. I know I do.
Dude, yeah, and we have literally some of the coolest stickers. And I know I'm biased, but my co-founder Donovan is the best designer I know, and he still hand designs all of, like, we have this. If you buy any Hayes call from us right now, like a duck call or a goose call, they come with this bill collector sticker that he designed, and it's this awesome, badass hand drawn sticker that he drew and like digitized. And there's some amazing stuff that we have for sale and as bonus stickers.
Do you guys usually throw out new stickers like once a month, or is that like a
There's no
6 month thing?
frequency.
Just
No,
kind of
it's
whenever.
just, it depends. Like the ditch pickle bundle, which is the bass bundle I was talking about. The ditch pickle bundle has its own custom sticker in it, and that's one that we designed just for that. We have all these awesome Thunder Chicken stickers that we've designed over the last 4 years. We've had shirts, hats, and all this stuff. We're releasing a sticker sheet coming up. That's new. I haven't told anybody that. We have a sticker sheet that has every Chicken logo that we've done coming out. The bill collector one was fun. We just, I don't know. We kind of addicted to stickers. If you could see the other side of my computer, it's ridiculous right now.
I so I told you I had two questions. I wanted to ask you the other one about how do you guys moderate? Is that something you can talk about? Is it something is there like, do you guys have moderators that get on there and read content? Or are you waiting for people to like kind of tell you, hey, this guy's a douche, like you gotta get him
Yeah.
out of here?
So we've actually got thousands of moderators because the community moderates. So if somebody poaches something or here's a good example. If it's usually a kid, if a kid comes in and they're just posting like fake trophies, they
Oh,
probably make it about an hour before we
oh
know.
shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the community reports it. You can go to a post and hit report, and you can explain why. We introduced that for like inappropriate content, like porn or something, which has happened infrequently. But I mean, every now and then you get some idiot that does it. But what happened was people are like, "Hey, they're cheating and hacking the reward system." Like, our members understand that we have to pay for these T-shirts that go out, so
Hmm.
they'll report it. Or if people see somebody poaching, they'll report it, and all that stuff gets human reviewed. I mean, we have, it's a much more complicated system that, like, there's a lot of technology behind it. There's certain things we look out for from a malicious standpoint, but for the most part, the community does the regulating, man. I mean, it's just like we have so many people that see stuff before we do, and they'll report it and it gets reviewed, and a lot of it stays. Sometimes people don't like stuff, but it's legal.
Yeah.
You may not like that somebody speared something, but it's legal, and that's hunting. So
I never thought about somebody posting fake stuff to get the points. So yeah, I guess that's
yeah,
something
don't do it. We'll delete your ass. So
that
for anybody listening thinking that's a good idea, and
there's
and
your
once
warning.
and once you get once we flag you, we are not kind to coming back either. That is one thing. Like, it's fraudulent behavior, it's theft. We take it very seriously. So it's not like a little haha thing, because you can get free stuff. This is gift cards. Just these are. We just did away. We had a bag of coffee that was actually we decided up front when we rolled it out, for the first 90 days we were going to give away bags of coffee. We have given away hundreds of bags of coffee, but it was really easy to get, and people were faking their way to it and claiming coffee, and then they would try to come back in and do it again, and like, those people were deleted for life. It's like, we were
Yeah,
like, nope, same
taking
address.
advantage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we don't take kind to stealing money from us. Don't do it, or I'll come find you.
Can you is there one thing that sticks out in your mind about the worst person that you've had on your app, or can you not say it?
um yeah, dude, we oh god, I shouldn't tell the story.
I bet it's funny.
uh
I'd love to hear it.
we had this one lady who got on, and she was a little kooky, like very kooky, And one day, like she was posting stuff about gardening, and she seemed super in tune with nature. And I was kind of like, okay, she's cool. Like I'm also a little hippie sometimes. Like I do my own composting.
Yeah.
My friends make fun of me because they're like, you should be really redneck, and you kind of are because you have a lot of guns and you kill stuff, but you also like compost and recycle. And I'm like, yeah, because that's the good for the environment, you know. And they don't understand that hunters are usually like super green. This lady was kind of in line with that, but in like really quirky way. And so I don't know. I'm seeing a ton of content about super organic composting, and at first, our members know that I'm a gardener, and they're tagging me in her content. And so I'm like, okay, I'm always nice to people, and I was kind of not giving her super long responses because she just kept tagging me and tagging me and tagging me, and going back and forth. And finally, I just stopped. I'm like, I can't keep going back and forth with this lady.
Yeah.
Then she starts messaging me directly. It's off the thread, and she's DMing me, and I'm like, okay. She sends me this big long thing about what you're eating and how it gets digested, and then she asked me how my farts smell and how that would impact the deer, and I'm like, woo, next level, like weird. Like I've never had a woman
Yeah.
ask that, right? Like that was weird, especially a stranger who's probably 30 years older than me.
And you thought she was being dead serious, right? It wasn't
She
like a
was. No,
joke.
100
Yeah.
no, it wasn't a joke. This was 100% serious. And then, she just kept getting kookier and kookier, and she kept towing the line of the stuff gets reported, and sometimes we don't like it, but it's not against the terms. Like, there's times when I'm like, "That's not in good taste," but I can't do anything about it because we do pride ourselves on letting the community have conversations. So, I don't even remember what she was posting, but there were multiple times the team was like, I don't want to say her name because I
Yeah.
feel bad even telling this story, but I'm gonna tell it. She well, we'll call her Juanita. I'm just gonna call her Juanita. It's a made up name.
Okay.
So Juanita is keeps coming back around, and people that I have been on GoWild that I've met and becomes friends with that are members, they're texting me and be like, dude, this lady's off her rocker with her content that she's posting. She's getting further and further out there. She is a space cadet. Okay, one day she starts posting these pictures, and they're like fairly revealing and this is not, she's like a 60-year-old woman, and she's starting to get down to like not lingerie, but like it's a little revealing of her like doing her gardening. And I'm like, all right, I don't know. She's gardening. It's at home. She's pretty remote. So she probably just like walked out and started doing it and didn't think about it. And then I can't believe I'm telling this story. So then it's like it keeps going, and there's a couple more posts like that. And then finally she posted a picture of herself with this wig on or something going on. I don't know what the hell it was. Um, and her nipple was hanging out. I
Oh
can't, like, it
man.
was a selfie, and like it was from this low angle, and I had to look at it for a little bit, and I'm like, yep, yep, that's a nipple. And like it got reported by a member, and it got reported and reported, and it's like it's hitting my team's Slack. We have a Slack channel. For anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's like a team internal chat, and everybody's like, oh my God, what is Juanita doing? And I'm like, okay, she's gone. So I'm like trying to delete her as quickly as possible because she's posting freaking nipples on GoWild, uh, which isn't even the first nipple. Again, we've had people just like randomly post porn, but this was this lady's own nipple that she posted. Like, it was so weird. And she even called out, she like acted like it was a selfie. And she's like, some people might find this distasteful, but it's just me. And like, I'm like, yeah, but it wasn't. Like, you knew it was there because you called it out
Yeah.
when you posted it. Like, you knew you were posting your nipple on this platform. Totally weird. Like that. I can't even remember. I think I've blocked out. I wish I could remember all the other things that happened.
Do
But
you
that
think
one
do you think
today, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Do you think she was trying to like test the waters to see how
I
far
don't
she could go?
I don't know. She didn't come back. She never did come back. I thought for sure she was kooky enough to where she'd come back. Sometimes people will come back long enough just to yell at you for deleting them.
Yeah.
Because we can't delete you nothing stops you from coming back, right? Like we don't have like some device. I mean, we can block an IP address, I guess, but like you can go make a new account all day long with new emails. So she didn't come back, but I don't know. It's so weird. So it's literally one of the weird. I mean, she asked me how my farts smell, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty weird.
Yeah,
Pretty random.
you didn't think that was going to
How
be the answer, did you?
I definitely didn't. How long was she on the app for? Do you remember? A couple
Months,
months or yeah,
months. I mean, she was posting a ton too. She had been
yeah.
on there for years. I think because we launched just for context, we launched in beta on iOS in 2017. We launched our Android app in 2018. We launched our web last year. I don't know. So like we've been around for a few years, building up some steam, and she had been on there since like 2020.
Hmm.
But I guess this year was the year she decided to really get after it. So I've never told that story. That's the first time I've ever mentioned this in public about Juanita posting her nipple. So
Juanita, the one that got away.
the one that was forced away. Kindly leave.
Yeah, it's definitely not the answer I thought I was going to get. So, do
No.
you guys have big plans for 2022? You guys anything special coming out or?
So the big, this is not the answer that most people would expect either. The big thing that our tech company is doing in 2022 is a trade show or a convention. We've been to a ton. We've hosted events at them, but we have never had our own booth. And I'm very excited about this because it's also the resurgence of our rendezvous. Back in the day when we were like really scrappy and just trying to get things going, we would host rendezvous, which are basically just like GoWild meetups. We haven't done them in a long time. So we're going to be at the Great American Outdoor Show in Harrisburg. We'll be there the entire time. We are in booth 412, I think. We're right up front when you come in by Colt. We're in the firearms section, and we have a pretty good sized booth. We're going to be hosting meetups at our booth on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Well, it opens on the first Saturday, Sunday, and then the last Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll have meetups each of those days. We're going to be hosting various people. I think right now I have confirmed that Bill Thompson, who's the founder of the Spartan Forge app. It's a really cool mapping app that's coming out. He's going to come by and have a meet and greet. I think Bo Martonic from East Meets West podcast is going to be in there. We'll have others coming along. I haven't quite got our guest list lined up, but we're going to be selling stuff. If you show up wearing your GoWild Rewards shirt, you get a gift, I think. There's going to be all kinds of fun stuff. We're going to have Sasquatch on site for a lot of the I don't know how much Sasquatch will be there. But his presence has been requested. So, and we have this really cool interactive booth thing that we've set up. So that is new for us. I know a lot of people are like, oh, cool, you're going to a conference or a convention, but we haven't done this. And so we're building our own booth because we're a poor startup and super scrappy. So we'll be showing up. We just bought a trailer to haul it up there with. Like, I mean, we're going all in on this thing. I'm super pumped about that. As we get deeper into this year, we're looking at some fun. I'm always hesitant to say what we're working on because I've announced stuff in the past that we ended up not doing. We're trying to find ways to put our spin on things that exist that we don't do currently. Like we don't do hashtags at the moment. Hashtags are a great way to turn your platform into spam, like Instagram. Like everybody posts like the max of hashtags you can do on Instagram, right? Because you're trying to get more reach. That is indicative of the fact that like it's not a good platform. It's like you have to do that to get reach. We don't have that problem. You can get reach without hashtags. So we've been debating on like how do you what value do they add? I think we've got it figured out, and I think we'll be introducing this year soon. So that's exciting. We will be adding gear functionality. I can't really divulge too much into that. But like making the one complaint we get a lot, like we have more than 500,000 pieces of gear you can tag and interact with on the platform, but it's still not enough. I mean, we have more. Just to tell you how much that is, That is more than Bass Pro, Cabela's, Amazon's outdoor section, backcountry.com, and Shields combined. Combined. And it's still not enough for people. So we're trying to figure out a better way to allow you to interact with gear. I think we've got that figured out. It's a big task, but we're working on that. And then, video improvements. This is the year, like normally we have like these grand things we're working on. We really feel like we've gotten to a point where like the platform overall is good. There's areas for improvement, like the Android app needs improvement. We can always be faster, but the marketing too. I think you'll be, if I were to really speak to some like a big thing for us this year is we're going to be everywhere. We're signing contracts right now with a lot of shows. Working with a lot of big names. Parker McDonald's going to be creating content with us. He's the host of Southern Ground. Working with Bo Martonic and the Hunting Public and a lot of these guys to be a part of their content and to really work with them. And so that's something we're also really excited about, because prior to 2022, we just haven't really had the budget to be able to do this kind of stuff. So I know you follow me or we're connected on LinkedIn now. So you probably saw we raised some money. So typical people that listen to this probably don't understand necessarily how that works, but like you're raising money in the hopes that, you're bringing on investors who want the business to grow so that everybody can reap the rewards of building a good business. And so part of that is, having a good budget to get the word out. That's our biggest challenge, is that, we have, I haven't had millions and millions and millions of dollars to advertise like some other companies have. There's a lot of big name companies in the outdoors, like All Trails is a hiking app. I mean, these guys, and I know the CEO, Ron, they have raised like, I think more than $100 million at this point. OnX took on $18 million in 2018. That's why they're a household name right now, is because they raised a lot of money. And so we haven't raised that much money, but we've got a good start this year to really kicking this off and making a dent, and really trying to get the word out.
I'll get the word out for you on this show, hopefully a little bit.
Yeah, man. I mean, dude, there's a reason I show up at 9:00 at night to do these things, because I find that I don't want to call you small, so don't take this wrong. I find that smaller podcasts, like and when I say that, I mean like not the Stephen Ornelas, right?
I'm small.
Well, I don't care though, but I don't care. Like anything from, I mean, unless somebody has like 5 downloads a show, I don't care. Like I like the guys that have a couple hundred downloads a show, because my thing is, if somebody shows up, if you got 200 people that show up every week to listen to your show, they probably really care about you, and they probably are going to listen to the whole show. That's quality, right? So, there aren't too many other hours of my day where I can talk and get 200 people to listen. And I don't know what you don't have to say, obviously, but I'm not saying Adam has 200 downloads. I'm using that as an example. But like, I don't really care about volume when I do interviews per se. For me, it's just finding people that I feel like are going to be quality hosts and have, been up and running for a little bit. So after you and I kind of chatted a little bit, I could tell you seemed like you had a good thing going. So
cool. I'm glad you touched on the hashtags thing, because I actually, because I've been on Instagram as long as anybody else, and I got on there and I was like, did I put hashtags on here? And I actually like tried it, because sometimes it'll like highlight it or whatever, it'll pop up, and I was like, I don't think they do that here. So I guess
no, we didn't. We decided not to do it. I mean, it's intentional, because it turns platforms into spam. And and it's like I'm not really big on jumping into things just because they've been done before. However, my co-founder Donovan is very big on like, let's not disrupt for the sake of disrupting. And right now it kind of seems like we're just not doing it for the sake of not doing it, which is not where we want to be. So we're trying to find a nice blend that makes sense for us.
You talked about adding kind of like some more gear or whatever. I like to film a little bit and stuff, take a camera with me to the woods, and I did tag some of that stuff, but I noticed that I was only able to tag like a camera body, but I couldn't tag like every lens that I had with me. So it's interesting to hear that you touched on that too, because there was some stuff on there that I wanted to put that I wasn't able to put. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and it's tough because, like, again, this is a hunting show, so I don't want to nerd out, but like, data feeds just aren't what people think. People are like, you don't have my Sitka coat, you don't have my First Light. Like, that's where we get in trouble on trying to find data. is with these smaller brands that have like 0.5% of market share and are only sold through exclusive retailers who
Hmm.
don't even sell online. Like, not that everybody's like that, but like there's some products that people are like, oh, you need to carry this thing. And it's like, you can't even find a place that has that data. And even if you find a store that sells it, doesn't mean we have a right to just scrape it, right? So it's tougher than it sounds. Um, we're trying to figure that out. I think we've got some solutions in play that should help close the gap, but it's not going to be. It's probably going to be like summer by the time we figure that out.
Yeah, it's definitely kick ass. I mean, I don't want to down talk it at all. There's
No,
a
I mean,
shit ton of things on there that you guys can tag, but I just I wanted to put a
I know
few
exactly
like
what you're
strange
saying.
items on there, and yeah,
I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, I have a lot of First Light gear, and we don't have all of it, and so I
yeah,
don't even on all the stuff that's on my profile manually uploaded. But sometimes I'll like I have my sanctuary bibs on there, but I don't have my and I can't even remember what they're called. Um, but I have a pair of pants that aren't on there, and so I just don't even tag them. So
it's
I
probably the obsidian ones, the new ones, maybe.
no, they're not new. I got these which they had those when I bought these. They're like I think they're waterproof or at least highly water resistant. But they are a lighter weight, really heavy duty pants with with suspenders,
Huh.
and I really like them, and I wear them pretty much until it gets into the 30s.
Yeah,
But I haven't uploaded them. You can do custom uploads for anybody listening. Like you can custom upload your gear, and I've done a bunch of that, but it is a little cumbersome. So
yeah. At least you have the option though.
you can, yeah, if you want to.
I'm gonna ask you this too, and you can decline to maybe answer, but what would be some advice for somebody trying to get into the outdoor industry? I know that's kind of a broad uh, question because you could be wanting to be a podcaster or professional hunter or have an app or something, but would you have like one sole piece of advice?
Yeah, I think that comes in two waves. So the first is to um, not be deterred by the fact that you aren't in the industry yet. I started Go Wild, and well, I went. I was doing a podcast interview one time, and somebody said it must have been easy to start this company with all your contacts you have in the outdoor industry.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, actually, I knew no one. I had never even thought about it as an industry. And if you flash back to August of 2016, my contacts were zero. Like I've worked and earned everything I have in this industry. I've, I mean, our relationship with Garmin comes from a cold email. You know, it's like all of this stuff is just hard grinding, um, a lot of hours. When it was a side hustle, it was, you know, put my son to sleep when my wife would work night shift, put him to bed at 8, work until 1 a.m., get up at 5 a.m. and work until I had to leave for work at 8 a.m., taking my lunch breaks doing this, and then coming back home and doing it all over again. So like I think people get really freaked out by like not knowing people in the industry. Um, it is not the easiest of industries to break into. It is a good old boy club, and I don't say that to deter people. There are people who aren't like that, but it's probably like 30 to 40% of people kind of have their click, and that skews more on the firearms and archery side. It's less so on maybe some of the tech companies that are coming out. There's some more innovative companies that are a little bit younger brands that aren't as established, and you'll find some people that are super welcoming. So don't take that to mean it's always going to be that way. But I tell people this because I think you should know before you start cold calling people. Like some people aren't going to have anything to do with you until you've been around, and you know it's the third shot show in a row you've been asking about working together, and okay, well, this guy's obviously not going away. That was something somebody told me in 2017. He said, you're not going to be credible as a brand until you've been around for 3 to 5 years. And that was true to a lot of people. So um, just know you don't need a network to get into it. You can work your way in, but it is going to be hard, and there's going to be at least 30 to 40% of people who want you to go away and leave them alone. So you need to find where you can get traction, find people who believe in you. And the industry's shifting, the tides are changing. There's definitely a lot of young blood who is excited to work with other people who are coming in. The other thing I was going to say is to look at what is out there. And if you are starting a podcast or if you're starting whatever, how are you going to differentiate? Does the world need another broadhead company? I don't know, but that is a noisy space. If that's your thing and your passion, I do wish you luck, but it's going to be a tough road. It doesn't mean you can't succeed, but like you got to think through what you're doing and what's the competition around that and how much can you scale. The other thing I always try to explain to people is just because you are super passionate about this one thing does not mean that there is a huge market. If you are hyper into, building the best sheep hunting bags in the world, I hate to tell you, but like you're not going to build a big business because sheep hunting is it's the most limited, like exclusive club in the world, you know?
Mhm.
So, and I talk to a lot of people who elk hunting is another one that people are super into, and you can build good businesses out of it. But there's a cap, there's a hard cap on how big an elk hunting brand can get because it's just not a huge percentage of hunters. If you want to go big into hunting, even if you aren't super into it, you better figure out whitetail. Like whitetail is king. It is 80 to 90% of hunters. It is the biggest spenders. I know sheep like probably per capita spend more, but
Yeah.
you have to look at the overall volume. People are traveling for whitetail. They're buying multiple tags for whitetail. They're buying these ridiculous feeders. They have side by sides. That is the industry. If you want to look beyond that, it's waterfowl, it's turkey. You start getting into predator. It's just we've gotten so like jacked up because of Instagram. Everybody likes, oh, Cam Haynes, he can hike 20 miles and kill something 80 yards away. Yeah, it's cool content, but like when you're building a brand, you're going to have to find a market. And while there's a lot of demand for that content out there, it's aspirational. A lot of that content is being consumed by whitetail hunters who would one day like to do that. And there's a reason out west, their fastest growing tag is non-residential because people are traveling. It is the hunt on a pedestal. However,
Mhm.
it is just not. It's not the smartest business path to go down. So that's my advice: is focus on where there's the most market share if you're going to get into something. If you get the more there's my buddy Joe, who's got like this saltwater empire. He always says there's riches in niches, and he's not wrong. He's built an incredible business on like just a subset of saltwater fishing. But I just always try to remind people, I'm like, just go look up the hunter numbers. And when you start looking at some of these subsets of like how few people do some of this stuff, you're going to see real fast of like, you're not going to build this giant business on bear hunting alone, right? Like, you just kind of got to think through like, what are these products I can offer? If it's a podcast, what are the topics I can really get into, and how big can that audience get? With whitetail, it's like, dude, you can get to there's 10, 12 million people that do
Yeah.
that. Now we're talking. But if if you're going to get into like snipe hunting, the snipe hunting podcast, it's like, man, that's a ridiculous example, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
people, like, there's not that big of an audience.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned building Go Wild?
um, that's a really good question, and it seems like one I should have really practiced. Probably to not get so damn distracted. I mean, our company has pivoted multiple times. We've tried out way too much stuff. We didn't know who we were early in the business, and we spent a lot of time, a lot of money trying stuff we shouldn't have. But the flip of that is like you don't know what's going to stick until you do it. we did this gear thing, and it was one of 5 things we were looking at, and then everybody went nuts over Gearbox, which is the functionality. It's kind of just become a part of GoWild. It's not really called Gearbox anymore, but Gearbox was the ability to tag gear, and that ended up taking off. And it's like, man, well, we should just do more of that. And so we started, leaning into that, and now we sell gear because it was such a successful thing. So my hesitant answer there is that I wish there were things we hadn't done. But without doing those, I don't know that we would have gotten to where we are.
Yeah. Kind of just the learning process, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. I guess I'll have one more question for you. What is your favorite wild game dish?
Hmm. My favorite wild game dish, at least as of late, is super simple. I take my grind, and everybody makes grind. I will say I'm like meticulous in making my grind though. I can see other people's pictures and know that my grind is better. I'm a grind snob, but I take like every bit of fat that I can pull out is not going in my grind pile. I will sit there for like 2 hours cutting every little piece of fat off of my grind. And then I do something that a lot of people think is weird, but I'll take about a third to a half of my liver when I'm making my grind, and I cube it up, and I'll put it in as I'm making the grind. And it makes the grind when you make it, you're like, dude, this is going to be nasty because it's like going to be heavy liver taste. If you don't like liver, that could be unappealing. But when you cook it, it's not super strong. And the way I use my grind, I don't really make burgers with it. I make Mexican pizzas with this liver grind,
Huh.
and it is really, really good. I don't know that it's my favorite thing. Like, I think my favorite thing is just taking like a sirloin roast or the football roast, cooking it medium rare, slicing that thing super thin. It's kind of hard to beat that, but like for the element of surprise, nobody ever expects a Mexican pizza made out of venison liver and grind meat. But it's it's kind of like, think of a lot of people like those Taco Bell ones, that like that's kind of what people think of. It is that at like a gourmet level when I make these. It is so good. I
Huh.
take and I take, traditionally I think they're made with pinto beans. I take them with black beans, and I put in a little bit of lime juice and salt and cook that and then I blend it and use that, and then I put the meat on top of that. It is like mind-numbingly good. In fact, I have a dinner club thing coming up that we usually have once a year to cook for our friends, and I'm thinking about doing Mexican pizzas.
That sounds damn good.
It's so good.
I've never heard of anybody grinding up liver in their ground. So you're doing one deer and then half the liver?
Half is going pretty deep into that commitment. You might want to try it at a third the first time you do
Yeah.
it.
That kind of brings up another question. Is there on the Go Wild app, is there a place for recipes on there? Maybe I'm mistaken or I'm missing it.
We used to do that. We don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
We had this whole thing of like ability to submit a recipe and it would pin to your profile and stuff. You could pick like the protein and like whatever you're using. It was cool. It was a really cool functionality. And we removed it because people were just posting links to recipes. It's like
Yeah.
nobody was
Uh-huh.
using it.
It wasn't their personal ones.
You're right, right. People
Yeah.
were like, we were getting like, I don't know, 5 a week. It just wasn't enough to you anytime you build technology, you get into tech debt. So things have to be updated. Every time you update the app, you got to pay attention to the recipe functionality for 8 people. And sometimes it's like 3 people using it 3 times a week. So when you're looking at literally what hundreds of thousands of people are doing, it's like, well, sorry, 3 people and spread across the country, we're gonna kill the recipe thing. So food is still super important to us. I mean, even to the brands we work with, we just brought in, and that's one thing I should call out, is like we sell a lot of cool gear and a lot of emerging products. One of the products we sell is Tacticalories. We have a meat and taters combo. So it's a venison rub and a vegetable rub that we sell together. It's a good deal. It's a better deal than you'll get through them direct. So from our partnership, you can go to Shop Go Wild and look up meat and taters, and you'll find it. But like I love working with Casey, who owns that company, because I love to cook. And so, cooking is still really important to us. I've done multiple sweepstakes with wild game chefs. I've hunted with wild game chefs for Go Wild, and um, it's something we like to be a part of. But sometimes that doesn't mean it should be functionality within the platform.
Yeah, that's what hunting's all about, right? Getting the
Yep.
meat.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, I love it. I love cooking about as much as I do hunting. Like, I love the butchering
Yeah.
about as much as I do the hunting, and I love the cooking as much. One of my favorite recipes that I'm doing I do this time of year, is my double smoked venison chili, which is
Hmm.
I smoke little, like, you always end up with like little chunks of meat that aren't quite a roast you would want to make barbacoa or something big with, but there's like a lot of big chunks that maybe you don't want to put in grind either. So I take like 2 or 3 of those, up to 4 or 5 pounds of meat, and I smoke those, and then I actually smoke the chili in a Dutch oven on my big green egg.
Hmm.
It's awesome. We actually have a YouTube video out there where you can see the whole process. We just launched it December today. I think it went up today, December 15th. So you'll
Cool.
find it.
I have to check that out. Can you tell
Yeah.
everybody, like, if they want to connect with you anywhere? I know they can look up the app. You're on iOS and Android at
Yeah.
Go Wild.
Yeah.
But
Go Wild's one word, or you can just go to downloadgowild.com, and that'll take you to the links to download the app. If you just want to shop, it's shopgowild.com. I personally am on LinkedIn and Go Wild. If you download Go Wild, you'll get a message from me automatically within 24 hours. Let me know that you heard about me on the Hunt the Wild podcast, and say hey. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I have a Twitter that I use just to look at news, really. I have like 35 followers. So if you want to be number 36 there, you can come over to that sad party. But really, I'm just on LinkedIn and Go Out at this point, and very active on both. So happy to connect with anybody there, or at either place.
cool. Well, I'll let you jump off here. I know you're a busy guy, and it's
All
getting
good,
late,
man.
and
Thanks for
probably need
having
to.
me. This was fun. Always cool to get to be a part of a new show and get to share the story with the new audience.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. I'll catch up with you soon, and I'll keep reading your LinkedIn posts. I
Yeah.
read them every day. So,
Yeah. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate
all
it.
right, I'll see you, man.
See ya.